Morning everybody, Silverbolt here, back for a Transformers review, going to be doing, as per the title page, Generation 1 Scorponok. Now, I'm going to be sticking with the cartoon continuity of Scorponok for this particular video, as his comic character is very different, both in size and temperament and shape and this, that and the other. So I'm going to stick to his cartoon counterpart as in the Transformers The Rebirth, parts 2 and 3, and the Generation 1 Japanese anime Headmasters, though, even though technically the Headmasters series wasn't strictly an anime, because they still use the same kind of animation that the Americans did. But there we go. Master Force and Victory were the real animes. Anyway, in Transformers The Rebirth, is when we first meet Scorponok, or rather, we first meet Zarak. Because you see, technically, Scorponok isn't even a Transformer. He's not a Cybertronian. He's not a Decepticon. He's a short little flesh creature. With a big ship. Now, Zarak, who is the leader of the Hive on Nebulos, of course, is the one that helps modify the Decepticon Headmasters and the Decepticon Target Masters. He stays behind in order to use his awesome mental powers in order to rebuild the entire city in, again, a remarkably short space of time into this thing. Now, where Scorponok is concerned, and where Fortress Maximus is concerned to a lesser degree in the American cartoons, is where we first meet the idea of Transectors. Because, of course, Scorponok is not a Cybertron in any way, shape or form. As far as we know in the Generation 1 cartoon, he does not even have his own distinct personality. He just is this giant bug thing. Fortress Maximus and Scorponok, of course, have their titanic conflict, where they're both depicted in their robot modes, at least, as being roughly the same size in their robot modes, which enables them to pound the living bejesus out of each other. After getting smacked by a bolt of plasma energy, Scorponok, with Galvatron and the Decepticons aboard, ends up being launched across the galaxy, and the whole series ends of Galvatron and Zarak arguing. Now, in the Generation 1 Japanese continuity, Scorponok is very different. Of course, with the Japanese Headmasters, there is no... Icky knows. There is no Nebulons at all. There is no human Headmasters. Nothing like that. There is Zarak. Okay? Or rather, in this form, Scorponok. This is Scorponok. This little guy is Scorponok. Right. Now we got that bit out of the way. Scorponok is from the same planet as Fortress, in that he's from the planet Master, where a race of diminutive Transformers form larger bodies with their Transector counterparts. Which is the idea behind the likes of Chrome Dome, Highbrow, Mindwipe, Weird Wolf, etc. Now, Scorponok, in this regard, in the first part of the Transformers Generation 1 Headmasters series, stays very much in the shadows, usually quite literally. All you usually see of him is a black outline in his eyes, hiding in the shadows, giving orders and this, that and the other. He's very devious. He's never actually joined the Decepticon army per se. He seems to have more entered into a somewhat alliance with Galvatron. However, being a Decepticon, and being an extraordinarily devious Decepticon at that, Scorponok frequently stabs Galvatron in the back. Scorponok only really emerges, one, after Cybertron is destroyed, because it is Scorponok and through him Mindwipe who blow up Cybertron, which in the process believes that Galvatron has been killed. Scorponok then takes over the Decepticons and develops rather an obsession with destroying fortress. When Scorponok takes control of the headmaster, the Decepticons, sorry, at first he pretends that he's just simply Galvatron's mouthpiece and that Galvatron is still all alive and well and he's governing them from afar somewhere. This, of course, is total crap. In reality, he has usurped power quite cleverly and now controls the entire Decepticons, who, after the pounding of Series 3, they tend to be actually quite powerful. Now, after Galvatron's return, and he does return, Scorponok, unfortunately, who at this point now has Mega Zarek, his giant transector thing, is pretty much relegated to the role of taxi. He basically ferries all the Decepticons back and forth through space. From Char to Cybertron to Athenia to Earth to this, that and the other. To Mars, blah 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 blah. Scorponok, being the devious Decepticon that he is, eventually betrays Galvatron, and Galvatron, of course, ends up buried in the ice on Earth, and he also betrays Six-Shot, which is the only thing that stops Daniel, unfortunately, getting killed. Scorponok is defeated at the last Battle of Earth after Scorponok, who, having had success twice now blowing up Cybertron and Mars, decides that he wants to blow up the Earth. He fails, obviously, in the very last battle and is sent flying. Now, he does make a return, and it's in the second series, Super Guard Master Force, which also got a toy release. However, that toy release is Black Zarek, and that is a very, very nice toy, and I eventually do want to get my hands on it. So I'm not going to review the Super Guard Master Force series on Black Zarek. So we're going to leave it at that. Now, Scorponok, one of the things I'm going to point out about Scorponok is that his headmaster form, it's considerably larger. You see, it's a really weird thing, is that at times it would appear that Scorponok himself is actually quite small. He is only the size of another Transector. Yeah, he's only the size of another Planet Master resident, i.e. he's just slightly bigger than a human. Then there's other times where he's the same height as the headmasters from the Planet Master when they're on top of their transector body. So his height-wise does seem to be rather confusing at times. Maybe it's just the way that it's been drawn. It might just be that the angles are wrong or something like that. I'm not entirely sure how tall Scorponok is actually supposed to be. However, but seeing as he fits into the top of a giant transector, it's very safe to say he's probably quite large. Because bear in mind that Fortress was a normal-sized transector at one point, but he actually merged himself with the transector body to form the head of Fortress Maximus, and that's way out there. So the size difference between what Scorponok should be and what size he is, it does seem to vary depending on the episode that you watch. Onto the toy itself. Scorponok is the largest Decepticon transformer in the Generation 1 series. If he was around today, if he was released today as a toy, he would probably be classed as Supreme. No. Ultra. No, Supreme. Supreme class. Yeah, because it goes Scout, Deluxe, Voyager, Ultra, Leader, Supreme, if I recall correctly. As such, he's roughly the same height as Cybertron Starscream, Cybertron Primus, Cybertron Unicron. But when the Generation 1 toy came out, he was the largest. He does stand, as far as I'm aware, he does stand a little bit taller than Trypticon, and he does stand considerably taller than Metroplex. I've got to stop doing that. Stand taller than Metroplex. He has 3 modes. Obviously, this is the first primal mode, that of the Scorpion. The Scorpion has a little bit of a gimmick in that if you're rolling it along the floor, the legs move in a very, well, pretty much on Scorpion-like way, but it's, you know, it saves on motorising the damn thing. not as much to him as there is to Fort Max. You know, Fort Max has jail cells and working elevators and things like that, and lots of hidden compartments that you can stick things in. Well, Scorponok only really pretty much has the one in the form of the chest plate where you put Zarek. I'll get to that in a bit. Now, transforming into robot mode is quite simple because it's a very simple toy. I mean, I gotta admit, the tail on Scorponok is a bit of a letdown because all he really has is this very phallic-shaped orange thing that doesn't really do a huge amount. You know, it's rather unproportionate to an actual scorpion. But there we go. Putting him into robot mode is really absurdly simple. Fold it in, pull out the tail part. The tail part ratchets quite loudly into place, into the hole in the back, and it just locks into place. The legs fold down and snip into place. Oh yeah, you unfold the feet from underneath. Now the bottom half's done. Fold the legs in, like thus. Fold the arms down, and because I keep two of the cannons on the back of Scorponok, I just tend to switch the arm cannons round. And there we have Scorponok in robot mode, as such. Now, Scorponok, of course, comes with this helmet, which is the head of the scorpion, and also a helmet for Zarek. Because if you take Zarek, transform into his head as you know, standard headmaster rules, just fold the legs down. I should be able to get this in. Yes, I can. Push the head in, and his tech specs come up there, obviously. Well, that's rather unimpressive, isn't it? I mean, you've got giant body of doom, itty bitty head. Because, of course, Scorponok wasn't a triple headmaster the way that Fort Max was. So you simply take the helmet, a frequently lost part on Scorponok, I might point out, and just squeeze it into place. Helps if I actually do it right, which I don't seem to be doing. Ah, there we go. Just squeeze it into place. Lock it in. And flip down the visor, and of course make sure his little prongy things are upright. Now, the robot mode itself, because of the way the arms are, it actually gives quite a fair degree of posability to the, if I actually use an arm you can see, to the arms themselves, providing you watch out for the cannons. You know, the arms move in quite a very good degree of articulation, but that's purely because of the way that the toy transforms into a scorpion. Now, obviously, no hands. Something that Hasbro increasingly decides Transformers don't need is hands. For any of you who've seen the pictures so far of what appears to be the Power Core Combiner, there's still no hands! Bloody make hands, Hasbro! Anyway, they're on ratchets as well, and they're actually quite strong ratchets. If I take another Transformer, we'll take my convoy here, snap it in, he holds him quite nicely. And bear in mind, he's a metal Transformer. So he holds him quite nicely. Comes with two things you don't see in the American cartoon. He has a gun, which of course he can't really hold because, well, he has no blooming hands. So you fix the gun. Ah, that's why I'm using the wrong arm. Unfortunately, it only fits in one hand by a little peg on the inside of the floor. Thus we have Scorponok's giant gun of doom. And then we have another thing which is much more integral in the Japanese version. You don't even see it in the American version, which is the Scorpion Shield. Another thing on eBay that fetches quite a high price is the Scorpion Shield. You can put that whichever way you feel like it. So you can put it backwards or forwards, depends on which way you want to do it personally. Except I can't. Why can't I? There we are. There we go. I was putting it in the wrong hole. So you can have it facing upwards to keep his hand free, or downwards, depending whichever way you want to do it. And we'll take it down because it's right sticking in the middle of my face. Right, now then, there is a third mode to the toy, obviously, and that is its base mode. However, transforming it into base mode is really, really, really fiddly on camera. I know, I've tried this twice already, and because it tends to go outwards like that, it's an absolute nightmare trying to do at the desk. So instead, I've pulled this picture for you. Okay, there, as you can see, is the base mode for Scorponok. You know, because Scorponok is at the same size as Fortress Maximus, there's nowhere near as many working gadgety things as there is on Fortress Maximus. The most that the Scorponok base mode has is if you take the little robot-y dude that comes with Fortress Maximus, namely Fast Track, sorry, and put him on this little platform here, flip that little switch, you probably can't see that, might be a little easier now, the orange bit flops forward and sends Fast Track down the ramp. That is the tail. Not the most impressive in its base mode. Now the Japanese, it's also in the American cartoon Scorponok's ship mode. The Japanese fixed that completely in the fact that they just had him stay in his Scorpion mode, which was far nicer. Now, the toy itself, I have been after for quite some time, as most people who've been watching my older videos know. I was trying to get one at Auto Assembly, I never quite managed it. However, courtesy of Razatron, John, being very, very kind, managed to sort me out one. So I do really appreciate that, because it's pretty much nearly completes. It actually completes my Decepticon Headmaster collection. The only ones I'm now missing is Brainstorm and Misfire. And technically Scourge and Fracas. However, that's the point. Now, the toy of Scorponok is lovely. It really is absolutely gorgeous. Apart from if you don't have the helmet, which, as I've already showed you in the previous part of the video, if you don't... Wait, what's that? Oh, there we go. If you don't have the helmet, it does look really stupid. It really does look really stupid. Scorponok, as a Generation 1 figure, is very, very eagerly sought after, and it's like Fort Max in the fact that there's simply so much that comes with it. There's so many little gizmos. I mean, my Fort Max is quite relatively complete. The only things I am missing for my Fort Max is Cerebros' gun, and also the little robot's handgun. With Scorponok, I'm missing 2 of the antennas. So it really is a fantastic little toy. The things that will set you back the most on these kind of sites is the head. Like most Transformers of the Headmaster and Target Master variety, it is the heads and the guns that are the most expensive. I mean, I've seen Zarek on its own go for 90 quid. But I've seen the body, as in just literally the body with no add-ons whatsoever of Scorponok, go for as little as a tenner. So, you know, it really does depend on who's selling what. It is an absolutely fantastic toy. It is a great piece of uberness. But it is, of course, expensive. With it being a Headmaster and with it being the largest Decepticon Headmaster, it is quite expensive. You'll pay a fair bit for a Scorponok. I wanted to get him at Auto Assembly last year, obviously, and I did see about 3 or 4, but they were gone within seconds. Within seconds they were gone. So, however, I now have one! And I is well chuffed about having one. Ooh, someone's cooking Pop-Tarts. I can smell Pop-Tarts. Ooh, chocolate flavour. Oh, anyway, fantastic little toy. Really is a nice little toy. Oh, I say little toy, he's fucking big. He's not as big as Fort Maximus. Comes up to about Fort Max's chest. Bit of a pity, I have to admit, but there we go. Alright then, this is Silverbolt. Razatron, obviously this video is for you, matey. with Scorponok and Zarek signing off, saying au revoir, adios, auf Wiedersehen.